Three traits of alternative rock next on Retro Serial. Hey everyone, I'm Ian C. and you're watching Retro Serial. Growing up Generation X, I saw a lot of changes, as I'm sure you did as well. This is none more true than when it comes to music. We saw bands and whole genres of music coming in and out of style, and often their fashion along with it. Heck, even some bands changed radically from one album to the next. One of the more drastic shifts was the underground movement that exploded with the popularity of Nirvana in 1991. Underground music, often deemed alternative rock, really started in 1981 when punk died in the popular eyes, but had enough of a cult following that it kept it alive independently, thus being driven underground. This underground movement picked up steam and developed a lot of bands that could not be previously defined. Here are three traits of underground or alternative rock. But before we get to those three traits, would you please do me the honor of liking this video, subscribing to my channel, and share it on your favorite social media. Those three things right there are free for you to do, and they mean the world to us here at Retro Serial. If you're interested in going a step further, of course, you're always welcome to hit that bell notification so you don't miss a single episode. And if you want to support the channel financially, there's a couple ways you can do it. First of all, you can join our Patreon. The link to Patreon will be in the description below. But over there on the Patreon, there's two levels of support. There is the Cornflake Club, which is just $3 a month, saying thanks, we like what you do, please keep it up at Retro Serial. Then there's the Insiders Club, which is the Honeycomb Hideout. That's $5 a month, where you get most all videos and most all podcasts at least one day in advance. At least you can say, hey, I got to hear it or watch it before everybody else did. But now we have a new way that you can support if you want to make kind of a one-time donation, and that's through Venmo. We have our Venmo, which is going to be linked in the description below as well, but it's Singularity, it's at Singularity_Productions. So that's our Venmo account in case you're just interested in making a one-time donation to the channel. Thank you very much. And with all that said, let's get to our three traits of alternative rock. The first thing we need to talk about is sound. We cannot talk about underground music and alternative rock without first talking about its unique musical contribution. It was deemed alt-rock because it could not be defined by previously established genres of rock. Previously, we had genres of rock like new wave and metal and hair metal and punk and so on and so forth. But what made alternative rock unique is that the bands that comprised this genre of music really had their foot in more than one, and sometimes often three or four, different genres of music, and so it couldn't be strictly defined by one genre. You couldn't really define it as an evolution of punk or an evolution of metal or an evolution of new wave or what have you. The best way to go about this is to really look at some examples. Some of my favorite examples of early alternative rock are bands like the Pixies, the Cult, the Violent Femmes, and Jesus and the Mary Chain. Pixies had a very strong punk attitude and punk base to them, but they had enough of an influence of pop and new wave that they really couldn't be defined as a classic punk band, and therefore they became part of the alternative rock scene. The Cult is another example. The Cult had kind of a strong bluesy rock influence to them, rock sound to them, but they actually even had enough of especially in their early albums, they actually even had enough of a heavy metal and new wave influence to them to really make them undefinable. And the Violent Femmes too. The Violent Femmes, were they punk rock or were they acoustic rock? Well, they were an acoustic punk band. which was, I mean, you can see some of the roots of that in Husker Du, but I mean, they couldn't really be defined. The same thing could be said of Jesus and the Mary Chain. Jesus and the Mary Chain sounded like a punk crossover with psychedelic rock. They were like an acid band, except for they played kind of a punk beat to them as well. And then they had enough, of course, of new wave that they sounded a little new wave as well. But this is the example. You see, were they punk? Were they new wave? Well, they were a mishmash of, quite honestly, everything. In contrast to this, and something that comes close, are bands that kind of push the envelope of previously defined genres of rock, but are still squarely in that. So a band that needs to be talked about that comes to mind is The Cure, which I have mixed feelings about. Now, I don't have mixed feelings about The Cure of whether or not I like them or not, because I do. I actually love The Cure, but can we really define them as alternative rock? There were also bands out there at the same time that pushed the genre of their musical style, but still stayed within the bounds of their musical style. And so The Cure would be an example of that. It belongs in the discussion because it was very influential on a lot of alternative rock bands. But when I listen to The Cure, I still hear mainly a new wave band. Yes, they pushed it a little bit. They pushed the bounds of new wave a little bit. But overall, I don't think that they had a foot in another genre of music enough to really classify them as alternative, but they do belong in the discussion. However, that's just my opinion on that. I want to hear your opinion on The Cure. Do you think that they were a new wave band that pushed the genre, or do you think that they were, well, what do you think about them? Let me know, and let me know some of your favorite alternative rock bands and why they are called alternative rock, why they had one foot in one genre and one foot in another genre. I'm interested in hearing what you have to say about this in the comments section below. The next defining feature is its do-it-yourself attitude, its DIY attitude. This feature was really inherited from its punk rock predecessors. In the introduction to this video, I talked about how punk rock died in the popular eyes, but had enough of a cult following to keep it alive independently. What I mean by it died in the popular eyes is that the big money backing gave up on punk rock very quickly. All the major labels gave up on it, along with the money that came with it. But there was enough of a movement there to keep it alive. But as a result, these people had to do a lot of things themselves. What did they have to do themselves? Well, they had to make their own independent labels. They had to make their own tapes. A lot of times bands would make their own tapes or make their own records. They would go to places that produced records and negotiate their own deals with those places to produce, say, 500. Then they went on the road and would sell those records, or 1,000 of them, and sell those records. They also didn't have professional agents, so they would just call clubs and say, hey, we're coming through, can we do this? It was a very do-it-yourself attitude that started with that early punk movement, but alternative rock did too, because alternative rock really wasn't popular in the beginning. I very much feel this DIY attitude here at this channel. This channel is actually built on that. Right now I'm filming on an iPhone and I'm using iMovie. I don't have any professional editing equipment or anything like that here. I just basically said, hey, it's a shoddy workman who blames his tools. I will do the best that I can do with the things that I already have. So DIY is very much near and dear to me, and it might be why I like alternative rock music so much, because I really feel that and hear that DIY when I listen to it, and I see how it grew from this core group of independent bands to the explosion that happened after 1991. So what about you? How do you like this DIY attitude? Do you think that it is one of the major features of alternative rock, or what is it that you think about it? Let me know in the comments section below. And the the final feature is its stick-togetherness. What I mean by stick-togetherness is both bands and fans tended to run in the same crowds. This was really a result of its two previous features that we already mentioned. It had a unique sound and it had a DIY attitude, but as a result, they kind of had to stick together. You would often find somebody who didn't have a professional agent calling the same kind of clubs. Hey, we're the Cult, we're coming through your town, can we play at this club? The next time you have a band like the Violent Femmes, hey, we're the Violent Femmes, we're independent, can we play at your club? And bands kind of like that. Because of its DIY attitude, because of its unique sound, they ran in these same smaller circles and collected a lot of the same kind of fans. So somebody who might have been a fan of, say, Jesus and the Mary Chain would be friends with somebody who was a fan of a band, say, like the Cult, and then they would cross-fertilize with each other. But they really had to stick together in order to make the cohesive sound and in order to make the cohesive movement, or I should say better, that led to the movement known as alternative rock. So there we have it, 3 features of alternative rock. Now, I'm sure there are many features of alternative rock that I left out, maybe some examples that I didn't use too well. I want to hear all about it in the comment section below. And before you go, please don't forget to like, comment, subscribe. Free things for you to do means a lot to us. But also, if you're interested, follow the link below to either our Patreon page or our Venmo page, where you can make a financial contribution if you feel like this channel is something you want to support. So thank you very much for watching this. We will talk to you again on another episode of Retro Serial. Until then, stay retro, everyone.